Hello, welcome to Revive and Rise. I'm your host, Melody Parrish. I want to thank you so much for joining us today. So, today marks a new day for Revive and Rise. For the rest of this year, I've decided to share stories about my brother. And the lessons that I learned from those stories. This is going to be very difficult for me, which is why this is late and I apologize. This is going to be very real and raw. I'm going to say that, maybe there's going to be some moments of pause. You may hear my voice crack, or you may hear me having trouble breathing or swallowing, or different things of that nature. And I just ask you to please be patient with me. It's really hard to talk about my brother for me, and that's what grief is, right? You can't really control it, and it's not like you can plan for it either. It just happens. We can block it out a little bit, but your body and your brain still knows what happened, and it'll make sure you do too. So I want to start talking about my brother. So my brother, his name is Jeffrey Parrish, or I should say Ronald Jeffrey Parrish, after my dad. And he had many health issues. First and foremost, he was a paranoid schizophrenic, and that presented many struggles for him. He was also agoraphobic, and for those that don't know what agoraphobia is, it's a fear of crowds, a fear of a lot of people. And so there were many times, rather than going out into a crowd of people or just being around people, he chose to stay indoors in his house. There was a period of 3 years where he didn't leave his house except to go to the doctor. And he also had severe OCD, which, for those that don't know, is obsessive compulsive disorder. And one of the challenging things for him that came from this disorder was that he was very good at math, just exceptional. He started doubling numbers, and he started with the number 2, and then he'd say in his mind 2, 4, 16, and I asked him one day, like, what number do you get to? And I don't remember the exact number. I know it was 268,400 and something. I don't remember the last part of it. But when he did that and he got into that rhythm, He couldn't think of anything else, and he wouldn't stop multiplying until he reached that number. And you could talk to him, but he wouldn't respond. And he would say those numbers out loud, like under his breath. And you could see he would focus somewhere. It didn't matter where, it wasn't specific, until he got to that number. So it was challenging for him. He was, because of the agoraphobia, he was fearful of getting out in public. And he also had panic disorder and panic attacks. And I feel like this stemmed from his paranoia. He always felt like people were chasing him, that people were listening to him, that people were trying to get him. He never told me what they would do if they got him. He did, there were times when he did feel like people were trying to kill him, and that was the paranoia. So he would, sometimes he wouldn't eat because he thought they poisoned his food. Sometimes we'd have to go another path because he didn't want people following him. He also had, from the schizophrenia, he also had hallucinations. So he would see things that weren't there. You know, from the schizophrenia, he would definitely hear voices and see people and relate to them that weren't there. And he would talk back to them. He also had several health problems. He was severely morbidly obese, and that was a side effect from all of the medication that he was on. He also had a baseball-sized brain tumor removed, and that presented many problems as well. I tend to think that brain tumor was also a side effect from his medication, but that's just my personal opinion. And he also had blood clots in his legs twice. So, you know, he had many health problems as well as his mental issues that he was dealing with. And so, but once he got on the correct medication, he had the most wonderful psychiatrist that knew how to work with him. And she tried for so long to get the medication right. And when she finally did, you know, he was the most wonderful person. And sure, he had some of those problems still, but they weren't as severe, and he was able to deal with them. He lived as normal a life as he could. And with that being said, you know, what is normal, right? What is normal? It's different for everybody. And I don't think it's really a good word. But he had things, his favorite things. He had favorite teams, favorite things to watch on television, favorite places to go, favorite things to eat, favorite things to do. He was a person. So that is who he is. And now I'll tell you one of the stories. This comes from when I was a child. I don't remember my age, but I feel like I was under 10. I loved my brother from the time I was born. We were very close. And I always wanted to be like him. When I was little, I always wanted to be like him, and I would look up to him, and I followed him everywhere. I was the annoying little sister, always following him, always asking questions, and always wanting to imitate him. And sure, we would fight and argue, like all siblings do. But I just looked up to him so much. So one day, it was the beginning of summer, and I was following him around because we had the whole summer together, and finally, I think he must have gotten really tired of it and just wanted a break. So he told me, he said, I think it would be really cool if we had a swimming pool in the backyard. And I said, oh yeah, I do too. That would be so cool if we had a swimming pool in the back of the yard. I wish we did. And then he said, what would be even better is if we made the swimming pool. Now, when he said we, I got really excited because I thought that meant, we, as in me and him and possibly some of his friends or some of the neighborhood kids. We would all get in the backyard and dig our swimming pool and then go swimming in it. And then he said, we could have parties. We would be the cool people in the neighborhood because we would have a pool that we could swim in all the time. And this sounded great to me. I was like, oh, it keeps getting better. This is wonderful, and we have the summer to do it. And that's what I thought. We have all summer. We can certainly do that. It won't take long with us doing it. And then we can have the pool for the rest of the summer. And so I said, okay, let's do it. Now, that was when, in my excitement, my heart kind of broke because the next part that he told me didn't sound so good to me. He told me that pools were best if they were dug with a spoon. That's the way that you would get the smoothest bottom, and you would pack the dirt just right so that your pool wouldn't sink. He had all these reasons that digging a pool with a spoon was the best option. And I just felt that the spoon was going to make things really difficult. But I was excited. I was ready for the task, and I was going to do this with my Bubba J. And that's what I always called him when I was younger, was Bubba J. And I was so excited. I grabbed the spoon from him really quickly, and I said, okay, let's go. And I was running out the door, and I turned around, and there was nobody running with me. And he said, well, you go first and do that, and I'll be out there in a little while. You get us started. And I said, okay. So I went out and I just started digging. I asked him where to go. He said in the corner of the yard so that we could run in the rest of the yard. So, boy, I was excited. And I had my spoon. It was going to be the perfect pool for our backyard. Everything was going to be great. What a wonderful summer. This was going to be the best summer ever. And so I went out and I started digging our pool. We had patches of grass, in the backyard. Of course, they were just patches because, we played in the backyard. So a lot of the grass, there were places that the grass didn't grow. So I went to one of those and I just started digging with my spoon. And, while I was doing that, I was thinking of all the wonderful things that were going to happen. And then when my Bubba Jay came, all the things we were going to talk about, the games we were going to play while we're digging our pool. And so I started singing, and I was just having a good time back there. A couple hours passed. And I figured, he got busy or whatever. So I decided to take a break and go inside and get some water because it was really hot. Summer in South Carolina is not for the weak. And I went inside and he was playing with his friends, talking with his friends and doing whatever. And I asked him, I said, what, when are you coming out? Why don't we all come out and do this so it'll be faster? And he said, no, the first part needed to be me because I would get it precisely right because I was so smart and I was so detailed in things. Well, that made me so proud, and I couldn't believe that he thought that of me. So I was happy to finish drinking my water and run out there. But the dirt got hard. The deeper you got, the harder it got. And so after another hour, I went back and I asked, what can I do? The dirt's getting hard. And so he gave me a bottle. He filled it with water. And he said, pour a little water on it. And then you'll be able to get it out. And I said, okay. So I went back and I did that. But then it got really hot. And, after a while, I just decided to stop for the day. I would start back tomorrow. So I did, and that's what I did. I did that for, I don't know, a couple weeks of the summer, the first 3 weeks of the summer. And then I wanted him to be proud of me. And every time that I went to ask when he was coming, he said that he would rather me do it because if he got involved, it would mess it up and he would do something wrong. But if I was doing it, I would do everything right and the pool would be perfect. I just had to dig the hole. So there I was thinking that he was going to be so proud of me, and I was working really hard. I bent that spoon, straightened it out. I don't know how many bottles of water I went through. But anyway, after about the third week, they're at the end of this experiment. I went and got him And I said, I just want you to see what I've done so far. And he came out and he looked at it. He was very impressed because I had dug this hole that was probably about 3 feet long, at least 3 feet long. It was 1.5 feet wide, and it was 1 foot deep. And I had done it all with a spoon. And he was like, wow, that's pretty impressive, Mel. That's pretty impressive. And I just poked my chest out with pride. And I said, well, thank you. And now we can start doing it together. So I don't know if he felt bad for what he did. But he said, okay. So he came out, only he had a shovel, and he explained to me that only people of his age, only boys of his age would be able to use a shovel, that the shovel was not meant for me. And he just dug that same hole a little deeper, and of course it didn't take him long. He dug that hole about another 2 or 3 feet deeper, and then we looked at it, and he was like, wow, look at the pool we made. And I said, yes, it's great, isn't it? And I was so proud. And then he said, well, we need to get in our pool. And I said, yes, we do. He said, yeah, let's test it out. Let's test out this pool that we just made. I was ready. And so, we got our bathing suits on, and we filled the pool with water from the water hose, and we got in the pool. The pool was about to my mid-chest. It was that deep. And it was a lot shorter on him. But we were in our pool, and it was muddy, nasty water. But he said that after this first dip, we would start putting the cement and the necessary things in it so that it wouldn't get muddy anymore. But that we should take the first dip in our pool. I said, okay. So we got in there, and we kind of splashed around a little bit. And then he was like, and it was probably literally 15 minutes, but at that moment, that was the best 15 minutes of my life. and then we just got out of this basic hole in the ground, and he hosed me off because I was dirty, and then he hosed himself off, and then he said, okay, we'll go inside, and I'll fill I'll fix the pool, is what he said. I'll fix the pool. And so I did. And I didn't see that pool again until the next day. He had filled it up. And I had so many questions. And he just said, don't worry about it. It's okay. And from that day on, for the next 2 weeks, he let me follow him around. And I was so happy. And he would, just tussle my hair. And he was like, you did good. You did good. I'm proud of you. When I think of that story, and I think of what I learned from it, I never got aggravated, and I never understood until I was much older, and you can actually reflect and think and understand things. But I was so proud of what we accomplished. And, I didn't think about it then, but I think that's where I started to learn persistence and the skill of persistence, which, I've had most of my life. But I feel like that was when I learned that, things will happen. You can have a plan, but maybe that plan won't work out. Maybe you need to try something different. If you have a goal, maybe you need to try something different to accomplish that goal. And maybe if that doesn't work, you can try something different again. But if you keep doing that, eventually you can reach that goal if it's reachable. And, I think about, the spoon and the digging and, when the dirt got hard, I would pour the water on it, and I would make sure to after when it was all done, I patted everything down, to make sure that the pool was proper and I was paying attention to detail. I wanted my brother to be proud of me. And I remember as I was digging the pool with the spoon, and the spoon bent, I would just straighten it. I had to straighten that spoon so many times. It's really a wonder that it didn't break. I don't know how it didn't break, but that's what I did. For several hours, for 3 weeks in the summer, until I eventually got, whatever it was, the big hole that was there. And there were many times that I was tired. There were many times that I was hot and sweaty. There were many times that I was thirsty, that I was hungry, but I still did it. Because there was a goal that I wanted to reach. And I just feel like sometimes in life, we go and we set all these goals for ourselves, and we have all these ideas that if we get this, we'll be so happy. If we just do this, this will happen. If we have to get to this goal or that goal, or whatever it may be. And when we don't get there instantly, we'll try something. We don't get there instantly. Some people will decide that, oh, well, if that was supposed to happen, it would have, and then just stop. Other people say, well, I'm not good enough. I'm just going to give up. That's just not for me. But there are some people that will say, oh, that didn't work. Let me try something else. Let me try to get there another way. That's what I learned from that experience. But I didn't even know that I learned it. But it carried me throughout life. If there was a problem or if there was something that presented itself, then I would, and what I was doing didn't work, and then I would find an ulterior way of doing that, an alternate way of doing that. And I feel like that came from there. Just, my problem-solving skills and creativity and ways to do things. I feel like that was the first time that I really encountered that. Another thing was that teaches is patience. When you have a goal, and I wanted the big swimming pool, and I wanted it now, and just digging even one day, I thought, with a shovel with all of us would be so cool and so easy, but when that didn't happen, I found another way. And when it was just me because it would be done right, then that's another thing. No shovel, no other people, just me with a spoon and a bottle of water. And every time something would present itself that, I know I had plenty of plant roots and other things that I was having to dig up and pull out and things like that, I would just do it. And if something didn't work, I would just try and find an alternate way to do things. And with a spoon, that's small steps to the goal. Not a shovel, but a spoon. And that's the thing I feel like we have to realize. And that didn't really set in for a long time. And it's still something that I'm really working on. But now that I'm really working on those things, I can reflect back to this particular story and realize that I was doing that. When you have a goal, sometimes it's not instant. You have to have smaller steps. There's that saying that you can walk a mile in leaps, but you can also walk a mile step by step, and you walk a mile either way. And you think about the tortoise and the hare, that story. The hare ran and got there so fast. The tortoise took his time, but he eventually got to the same place. It just took longer. And I feel like sometimes, especially now, people have instant gratification. And that's so not good for us, because I feel like in this day and time, if people don't instantly have it, then they think it wasn't for them. They think it wasn't for them. They shouldn't have it. There's so many different negative cognitions that go with that instant gratification. And a lot of times they just give up. But if you take small steps, you'll eventually reach the same place. You'll eventually get that goal. And I've had to learn that. And I feel like when I was a child at this particular story, I did. Spoonful by spoonful, I was digging that pool. It wasn't how I planned it. It wasn't what I was thinking. And I had to have many alternatives, but still, I was digging that pool. And, looking back, it wouldn't matter if I had done it with a shovel and gotten it finished in 1 or 2 days, or if I dug it with a spoon. I still got the same hole in the ground. It also taught me another thing, that the feeling of people being proud of you, and the feeling of making others happy and making yourself happy. Doing things that can make both parties happy. It helped me to also understand the feeling of pride in myself and something that I did. Many times I feel like people, these things are very cliche, and these things, have been thrown around so much to where we just don't get it. And sometimes, there's the stereotype of understanding what it means, or the idea of what it means that comes from society. And we get all confused, and we think, we can't do anything for people to make people happy. I can't make somebody happy and make myself happy at the same time. It's got to be one or the other. Or you can't have pride in things. And nobody would be proud of anything I did. All these different ideas and different skewed ways of thinking come into play. And when you base it on society and what society thinks, then you get to the I'm not good enough to do that. And society will skew what we think pride means, having pride in something. It will skew what we think making people happy means, making ourselves happy. It'll skew things like, what the meaning of joy and what that feels like. And so I feel like this particular story was a good example for what those felt like for me. I measured a lot of things to the pride that I felt when my brother was proud of me. I measured a lot of things and a lot of feelings and emotions to the pride that I had in myself for doing that, the pride that I felt, the pride that I took in what I did. I measured a lot of things with the happiness that I felt and the joy I felt when we were both in the swimming pool, when I was the only one that could do something. Now, I'm not saying that those emotions and ideas didn't get skewed by society later in my life. And I'm not saying that I didn't end up with a lot of negative cognitions that never should have been tied to those things. and those ideas. But what I am saying is that I learned how things need to feel. I learned how the standard, that's where I got my standard. And it's wonderful when people are proud of you. It's wonderful when people are happy with you. And it's wonderful for you to be proud of yourself and take pride in your work and see what you accomplish. That's what makes pure joy. When we're doing what we feel we want to do, when we're doing what we feel makes us happy. And I think that was where I first set the standard for those things. And so I want to thank you for listening to my story and for me rambling on. I want to thank you for your patience with me. I hope I said something or did something that helped you in some way. And I hope that I helped you to understand that it's okay. It's okay to grieve. And you never fully understand grief. It just shows up, and it's been 4.5 going on 5 years. And I'm still not over it. But what does that even mean? And I hate when people say things, oh, well, you should be over that. No, you shouldn't. That part is a lie. So I want to thank you for joining me today. And just remember that when you suffer, you never have to suffer alone.